Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of KashCraft. My name is KashMuney and this is episode 14. I am at the villager trading hall, just trading with villagers, getting XP and repairing my tools. Why, you may ask? Well, we are doing a lot of building today, and that means a lot of resource gathering. You see, we are going to be working on the sides of the tent today. I love how the circus is turning out, but it is not close to being done. So we are going to be adding a second tent today. So let's get started. A big project means a lot of resources, and I am out of sand and almost out of gravel, so we need to go get some more of that. I swear, when making concrete, you never have enough sand or gravel. You always have to be getting more. But that's okay. It's going to make our circus look amazing in the end. I won't lie, I'm nervous to be starting the side parts of the circus tent. You see, building the centerpiece of the tent was relatively straightforward. I mean, it's a circular piece with a lot of symmetry, but for the side part, I have to merge two separate tents together and make it look like the fabric is flowing in a way that actually makes sense. I'm really excited to be working on this circus tent. The closer I get to finishing it, the closer I get to working on the environment and turn this from just a circus tent in like a super flat area to a circus world. You know, having some carnival games, maybe like a trading road going through the middle, maybe some like cool acts going on, a training area. I have huge ideas for making the circus come together, but we have to finish the circus tent before we can get to that. And that means mining a lot of gravel. There we go. 2 shulker boxes of gravel. Also, how are we 14 episodes into KashCraft? I remember building the wagons like what feels like a week ago. And now here I am like creating my mega base, this giant circus. It's been a fun experience and I'm really glad that all of you are here for the ride and enjoying it as much as I am. There we go, 2 shulker boxes of sand and a beach that is getting more and more demolished. And now I get to convert a ton of concrete powder. Oh, I've never done this much. This is gonna take forever. It's not a very interesting process either. Okay, I was looking up concrete converter designs online, and I think it might be easier literally just to have like a chest, a hopper, and then build something to contain the water. We could do something like this. And then, oh wait, hang on. Okay, I finally got something. If I hold left click and then right click, I will constantly break the concrete and this little contraption is constantly going to refill it. Not like the most pretty system, but it gets the job done. Oh, and I took inspiration from I Mind Crazy's design. So yeah, that's how we got here. Hopefully this makes my life a little bit easier. Wait, I have an idea. Okay, so you know how we fought the Wither last episode with some interesting results? I got a beacon, so why don't we build a full beacon and get some haste 2 going to speed up this process even more. All right, we'll finish building the base, place the beacon. Okay, so we're gonna do haste 2, place in our ingots, accept that, and that should give us the effect. Yeah, there's haste 2. So now, if we just fly back to our concrete converter, grab some concrete powder, and start doing this. Oh yeah, that is definitely faster. Now I have to still mine a bunch of concrete. 32 stacks later, and we have a lot of concrete. Okay, so now that we're prepared to start building, we actually aren't going to quite yet. I first need to plan out what I want this side piece to look like. With the main circus tent, I had a bit of a wireframe just to kind of guide like the curves I want, the height, just give myself an idea of what I want to do. And we need to do the same right here. So let's pop over to Creative World. All right, and here we are. Here is our wireframe. You can definitely see the main circus right here, but we need to figure out what we want our side tent to look like. First of all, it definitely needs to be taller. We don't want it to be tall as the center tent, but we want it to be able to like stand its ground, you know? Oh, and one change I want to make is to raise this ring a couple blocks so that it is on the same level as this one. With the build I have in mind, I can't have 2 separate heights for the side tents, so we are going to have to make these even. Perfect. And now we need to add the slopes to this side tent to make it feel like a piece of fabric has been draped over it and is being supported by this center pole. I'll definitely have to do a rough draft and then keep on refining my design until I get something I like. I never get it right first try. Almost never, at least. I'm not a huge fan of this. I feel like this center tent looks so wide and massive, but this one's just kind of like small and not very impressive. Maybe we can add a little ring up here, right here, and see how that works. Okay, here's something I like. We have the ring going on, which mimics the center tent, so it makes it feel like it's still part of the build, but it's a much smaller ring, so it doesn't take away from the power and majesticness of the center tent, so I really like it. I'm not sold on the design, but I think it's something we can work with for now. Oh, and we should add the slopes for the centerpiece, kind of like this. I think something like that should work. Okay, so that was the easy part. Now we have to connect these two tents. Remember, this is one piece of fabric, so when it goes between these two supports, it's not going to go all the way down. It's going to kind of go in between like this. So I need to figure out how to create a piece of fabric that looks like it's spanning between the two and draping according to gravity and actually makes sense. Okay, so after 15 minutes, I think I got something I like. I did a lot of experimenting and I really just wanted this to look right and feel right. And I even pulled off my jacket and used it as a test to figure out, how fabric drapes between a higher and a lower point. And the higher point has definitely more of a sloped curve, whereas it kind of like juts up real fast into the shorter point, which we have that going on. And if we're just imagining this tent filled in, we're going to have very high ceilings, which is exactly what I want. So I think that is all of the wireframe modeling I wanted to do. Now we can go back to KashCraft and build this. Okay, we are back on KashCraft and it is time to create the outline of the side tent. We have our wool, and before you know it, here it is. I made a couple changes. I adjusted the little swoop right here a bit, but otherwise this thing is looking really cool. Although very intimidating. It looks awful right now, obviously, because we don't have any colors, but I think I can pull this off. I hope so. Otherwise, I don't know. We don't think about that. Okay, so with the wireframe created, we can now get started on filling in our circus tent. When I made this first circus tent, I first built it out of dirt so I could get the structure right, and we are going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to use dirt to create a shape I want, really get the feel of the fabric correct, and then I will fill it in with the right colors. I think I'm first going to shape the outside curve of the side circus tent, because that's the easiest part. And then I will work on this connecting piece. I'm going to use my normal strategy to create this circular part, which involves using the side profile, creating semicircles based on it, smoothing that out, and then hopefully getting the right shape I want. But that means a lot of dirt placing for now. It's looking good, but I feel like this top ring is just a little bit too small in proportion to this one. I think I'm going to make some changes. And there we go. I like that more. I just made this ring a bit bigger and had to adjust these sides a little bit. The proportions of the diameter of the side tent to the ring were just a little bit off compared to this main tent. I want them to look similar, a little bit different, but I want the same like general vibe going on, and we didn't have that before, but now we do. And before I fill in this part of the side tent, I want to add the little swoops like we do here. As you can see, we have a little like curve going on. So I've just marked out some spots where I want like the top of the curve to be, and we are just going to add some little swoops in. And then we can blend that into the rest of this tent. Although already my head hurts. This is a lot of thinking. And this part is always a little bit tricky, just trying to figure out how to get everything to look right and feel right and really have that swoop and make it feel like fabric. The good thing is I've done this before, so I have an idea of what I'm doing. I think at least. I guess we'll see how it turns out, right? Okay, here we go. Now we have a bit of an outline for the sloping curve we want, and we're just going to take it around the entire circus, but I'm just going to do one half right now. We'll copy it over later. So now I can link up this curve to the tent right here. Gosh, I've never felt more like I just need to trust the process. This is a lot to do and a lot of moving parts, and we're getting it done, but oh my gosh. Okay, so we have a bit of a rough draft, really just everything connected right now. Oh, and I filled in the circle for this side of the tent a little bit. That's going to connect with the main circus tent, just to serve as a bit of a guide when I go in to fill this transition part. But it's going to look very different from what it is now. It's not like we're going to, start transitioning right here. That would look very weird. We'd have like a circle and then like a line connecting to another circle, and that wouldn't look too good. But the part of the circus that is going to stay, this right part right here, it looks very blocky right now. If you look over here, the main circus tent is very smooth. Like, we don't have a lot of like flat surfaces like we do here. It looks like one continuous piece of fabric. So we need to create that effect on this side. We'll do that by adding blocks, removing blocks, molding the fabric so that these little swoops kind of line up with the rest of it. And then that should be our surface for the right half of the tent basically done. So let's do that. Wow, that was a lot of work, but we have the outer part of the side tent filled in. It doesn't seem very noticeable at first how big of an effect the smoothing out has, but when you look at the structure as a whole, it helps so much and is so important to this process. But I kind of forgot to do the top part of the tent, so let's do that real quick. There we go. Much better. Believe it or not, that was the easy part of the build. This was relatively straightforward and we got it knocked out. So now we have to link this tent with this one by adding some sort of transition piece of fabric between the two, which I'm definitely nervous about. This is a huge part of the build and is going to be tricky, but we can do it. We built an entire circus tent. We can build one more. Before we get started on that, I am going to start just tearing down some of the stuff that's going to get in the way, like these little fancy spire things. Okay, so I think the best way to start with this is to get some guidelines going, kind of figure out what kind of shape I want. Something like this maybe, just a little guide to help me get started with, shaping this weird fabric. And now I'll start placing blocks, transitioning from the main tent to the side tent. Really trying to follow the curve of the tent, like we're gonna have it kind of swoop around, go in, and then back out again. So let's try it. Oh my gosh, placing the first blocks is so nerve-wracking. I just gotta go for it, but oh my gosh, I've been working on this long enough. I don't want to have to restart, but I also am never going to get anything done if I don't start. I'm not a big fan of it right now. I think it curves a little bit too aggressively. Instead of curving like this, I think I want it to curve a couple blocks out. So that means I got to adjust this outline a bit. Building any sort of organic takes a lot of trial and error, and you have to be very willing to just remove something and try again. And that way, hopefully it works, but it can take a couple iterations to get it right. Okay, and let's try that again. It's either going to look amazing or awful, and I don't know which. Okay, here's the rough draft, and I'm going to say it's not bad. I actually kind of like it. It's cool how it connects these two tents. Like, it makes this feel a bit more coherent. I mean, obviously we have a completed thing over here and this ugly dirt mound right here, but we're getting somewhere. Now I do need to do some smoothing just to make this feel a bit more natural, and I also need to incorporate these little swoops a bit more into the fabric. The swoops are just kind of placed on the fabric and you don't see them kind of incorporate into the rest of the structure like you do here. So yeah, let's do that real quick. Again, just adding blocks, taking away blocks, flying out, taking a look, flying back, making changes, slow process, but it's worth it. Here's some progress I made just incorporating the swoops into the fabric. Oh, and I don't think I mentioned this, but the idea of the swoops is that there's going to be a pull in the middle of them, like holding this part of the fabric up. And that is why this part is going to be more raised. And then the lower parts are where there is no pull. So, it's going to drop down. And I'm just trying to show that that part of the canvas is being propped up, so it's going to be a little bit higher. And that kind of shows further up the fabric. Oh no. I know that, it gets dark under here when I place all these blocks, but I kind of forgot that up there also gets dark and mobs can spawn up there. So I am just going to ignore it for now. Hopefully that doesn't come to bite me. But yeah, I need to light that up at some point. I think I've reached a point where I feel happy with this. That really wasn't as bad as I thought it'd be. It was just about placing those first couple of blocks, and then it really just kind of filled itself in, and here we are. But while this side looks great, yeah, the other side doesn't look so great. So we need to copy this over to here basically, which that involves a lot of me taking screenshots or writing the block positions down and then placing them in the same orientation over here. You know what? Why don't we roll a time lapse? Let's go. And filling in the second half is done. We are making a ton of progress. Once we add the colors, this thing is going to look amazing, but already I am loving it. And I did go ahead and add this oak trim around the entire tent just to make the borders feel a bit more defined. But we're going to pause and working on the right side tent, and I am going to replicate all that we have right now on the left side. You see, if I completely finish the right side tent behind me, I am going to have a harder time building the left one. Right now, the dirt makes it pretty clear to figure out what blocks I need to add to get this shape I want. And if I color the tent with the red and white colors, then that's going to be much harder to do. So we get to repeat this entire process over here, although I am just going to shorten it and make this a lot quicker. So let's do it. Oh, and by the way, I definitely will not be able to finish both of these side tents in this episode, but having both of them outlined is just going to help me a lot more. I do still plan to finish one side tent. Here is the dark oak border with a little bit of the tent started. Here's some progress on the outside part of the tent. It's cool how you can really see like the billows from under here. Here's the outside part built, looking fantastic. And there's the top added. Now we just have to do the transition part, which is gonna be fun. Now we are starting the transition part. Oh, and we have another mob farm. Oh, geez. Let's light this up real quick. I don't want to blow up. Oh, okay, I think we're good. Let's fly away now. But we're making good progress. We're almost there. We are done with that. And oh my gosh, this circus is going to be massive. Just look at how awesome this tent looks right now. Obviously, we still have a lot of work to do, but we're starting to get the idea of what this build's going to look like, but that is going to be all of our progress on the left side tent for this episode, so now we can get back to the right. What I need to do is clear out this side of the main tent. That way we can really incorporate these two tents together. So before you know it, we have cleared out a section of the circus. I can literally fly around it. Isn't that crazy? Okay, so the next step is to begin planning where the stripes are going to go. And this is going to be a bit tricky considering that this thing isn't circular and we can't just like divide this into equal segments. And we're going to center our stripes on the peak of each of these little swoops. So let's try this out. This process is going to define what I do when I color the tent, and I have to be careful I don't mess it up. I make the lines look relatively straight. So it's just a lot to think about. And ultimately, when we look at this, we're not going to worry about how straight the lines were. We're going to look at it as a whole. The small details are important, but they don't define your build, so you don't have to stress about them too much. You know, it probably would have helped to count the number of stripes I have before I start placing blocks, because then I wouldn't have to replace a bunch of them. Wait, just kidding. I do know what I'm doing. I'm just a little brain dead from placing blocks. But second guessing myself aside, we have the boundaries for these stripes marked out. With these marked out, you can really see how the circus is coming together, and it is going to look so much better once we have the stripes in. Like the main circus tent, I'm going to be using a gradient for the side circus tent, the same gradient actually, and that is red terracotta, red concrete, red wool, and then up there is glazed red terracotta. And then the white stripe is white concrete, calcites, white wool, and then snow blocks. So yeah, let's do that real quick. Although I say quick, and it is going to take me a couple hours. So let's roll another time lapse. Wow, that was a lot of building, but this looks awesome. The whole idea of it is really coming together. Two things that happened during that build. My elytra broke for the first time. I've never had an elytra break before, so I had to repair it like in the middle of building. And then secondly, I was bored, so I started watching the Great British Bake Off. That is such a good show. I love it. It is so funny and so entertaining to just put on in the background. But anyway, we are making huge progress right now. This circus tent's really coming together. It's not quite where I want it to be, but it's definitely getting there. Oh, also, you may have noticed in the time lapse that I left this stripe of the circus tent blank. I plan to add the circus's logo onto here or some cool design, just really make this side part stand out a bit. But I don't have a design for that yet, so we're going to leave it blank for now. The next step is to add the tent flaps to the side of the circus. We can't just have a floating ceiling. That looks a bit weird. If we look at a tent flap on the main circus tent, where we have one of the poles or a peak in the swoop, the side of the tent doesn't billow out as much. You can think of this as all the canvas for the side is the same height, so where the canvas is being pulled up more, it's not going to billow out as much, but where we have the bottom of the swoop, it's going to bill out a bit more as, it droops down and then it can go out a bit. So that's the thought process here. And we're just going to follow that idea for the sides of the tent here. Should be relatively straightforward, but like many things with this circus, it's going to take a while. We're just creating a bit of a curve that peaks when we have the lower part of this swoop, drops down to where we have a pole, and then swoops back up again. And we're just going to follow that going around. Also, beacons make such a big difference for building any sort of mega build. Like, I have switched my beacon between haste, speed, and jump boost, and they just make such a difference. Like, jump boost makes building this so much easier. Like, I don't have to use scaffolding. I can just jump and place blocks, and that's so nice. Haste was nice when I was replacing all these blocks so that I could get the stripes, and then the speed was nice when I was jumping between this side of the circus and the circus over here. I don't know, I just hadn't realized how big of a difference beacons make when you're doing any sort of big build. So yeah, if you're doing any sort of mega builds, get a beacon or a couple. Although after last episode's kind of disastrous wither fight, I might just be having one beacon for now. Okay, here's some progress. We're about halfway done. Something that I really try and get across with these side flaps are that I want to create little frames. So where we have a pole, we have this little like flat area right here that really kind of frames the space. You can see it a bit better here. We have this little diamond shape going on where, it kind of swoops down here and then peaks back up. And this will be important later when we add these little scenes like we did over there. So before we do the other half of the tent flaps, I am going to fill this in with the right colors. Yay, we're getting there and it's looking good. And this time I actually messed up the stripes. It was a good thing I checked. Maybe I do know something. Now, just to do the other half. And yes, while I work on this, I will be watching another episode of the Great British Bake Off. It is Biscuit Week. It's hard to record that seriously, but it's so much fun to watch the Great British Bake Off while doing Minecraft builds. About halfway. It's almost done. And there we go. It's pretty simple right now. We still have a lot of decorations to add, but we are getting close to being done with this. And if we just fly inside, this thing is so massive, and we're going to have another wing to the tent, so this is going to be even bigger. And again, I did leave a empty stripe right here, add some sort of logo or interesting pattern or detail right here. So the next order of business is to work on the border right here. As you can see, we have some spires and then just some detailed wooden trim and then a space for our art frame that we will fill in later. And there is no need to reinvent the wheel. Just follow our designs we did for the main circus tent. That way, these feel like they're part of the same thing. We'll add our spruce details so that we create these little frames, which we will be filling one out every episode to kind of summarize and remember what we did that episode. So we'll be doing one today for building this side tent. And now it's just about adding the spires for the border. And there we have it. The circus is feeling so grand and so cool. So next, we have this little crown on the main tent. I want to replicate something like that right here. I want this to feel like majestic and awesome, but I don't want it to take away from the main attraction of the main tent. So we'll add in our dark oak border. We can then build the cornerstone pieces, and then we can build the extra spires. Oh no, my elytra broke again, so now I need to do some trading. Get some XP to repair it. There we go. And then we could just make our flagpole. Not too bad. It fits well in with the circus. It mirrors what's going on with the main tent, but it's not as big, not as grand, so it doesn't take away too much attention from it, which is exactly what I want. Okay, we're getting close to being done. So now I want to just work on this little pink stripe. Obviously, we can't keep this pink stripe, so I am just going to do something similar to what I did here, just like a dark oak border, add some spires, and keep it pretty simple, but just add some sort of detail connecting the two tents. And there we have it. Again, I mimicked the design of the border down here, but I added a couple more spikes just to make this feel a bit more majestic up top. Like here, it's impressive, but here it's even more impressive. I wanted it to make it feel like the Extra height gives this more power, more majesticness, stuff like that. And the last thing to do is create a frame summarizing what we did today, and it's pretty clear what we're going to do for that frame. Also, it's going to be so exciting when we're wrapping up KashCraft and just have all these frames filled in, just summarizing what we did each episode, what shenanigans went down. But anyways, here is our finished frame. We just did the circus tent and the addition. Pretty simple, pretty basic, but it really captures like what we did today and captures it pretty well. However, that wraps us up for the day, and we are going to call the episode to a close. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. This was so much fun today. It was so much work, but this circus is looking so amazing. I'm so excited to get the left wing of it done and then really start working on details and making this feel grand and majestic, just how we wanted. But again, thank you so much for watching and have a great day. And just as a reminder, I will be holding my first live stream on December 27th at 2 p.m. EST. You can find me on Twitch as KashMoney3. We'll be exploring a tricky trials, and it's going to be a ton of fun. This video is going up a couple days before that live stream, so mark your calendars, and I'll see you there.